Hello Lightning, welcome back to Salesforce Lightning series. In my earlier video, Salesforce Lightning Magic Begins, I introduced Salesforce Lightning. The link of that video is given below in the description. In this video, I will go through the difference between Salesforce Classic and Salesforce Lightning with respect to multiple page application and single page application. So let the magic begin. So in this video, I will be covering following topics. What is multiple page application? Example of multiple page application. What is single page application? Examples of single page application. Advantages of single page application. Distinguish between classic and lightning in terms of multiple page application and single page application. So classic versus lightning. So difference between classic and lightning are one of the most asked interview question. So please understand the difference carefully. Instead of just giving you the difference, I will explain the terminology in depth with the help of example so that it is easier for you to grasp the difference. So here, page application and single page application. So what is multiple page application? In multiple page application, the first time the page is loaded, the entire HTML is being loaded. After that, every time the user clicks on a button or navigates, the entire page is reloaded. Yes, that is multi-page application for you. Ajax can be used for refreshing only particular parts of the application, but it is more complicated than creating single page application. Is the definition clear to you, or are you still confused? In case you are still confused, you will be cleared with the help of the next diagram. So multiple page application diagram. So if you observe this diagram, what you will see is that the client makes the initial request to the server, and then the server gives the HTML the first time the page is loaded. And then every time the client makes the request to the server, every time the page is reloaded, every time the HTML is being provided from the server to the client. So that is multiple page application for you. That is a traditional page life cycle. So advantage of this multiple page application is it is a tried and true model, and it naturally splits large application into small manageable chunks. But the disadvantage of multiple page application is, if you would notice, every single change you make, the client has to depend on the server, and there are a lot of round trips. If you see here, there is an initial request and HTML is being loaded, and next time, every time the client makes the request, every time the HTML is being loaded. So for every request, the client reaches the server, and then the whole HTML is given back. That is the main disadvantage of multiple page application. Now let's go through the example of multiple page application. This example will bring a lot of clarity in your mind. So I will be taking the example of New York Times. So I have opened New York Times. It is an example of multiple page application. So now if you see, if I click on any link, it takes some time to load the page. Now how can you see that it is a multiple page application? So for me, right click, select inspect, and then select offline mode. So once you click on offline mode, you get disconnected from the network. After that, let's see what happens. So I will be clicking on the link, and you see an error comes, known internet. So that is the ugly UI which you see once you try to click on any link. So what happens? When the user clicks on the link, immediately client requests the server to give back the information, the entire HTML. Because it is not connected, that's why it shows an ugly UI saying no internet. Definitely it's not that cool to see. Now let's see how a single page application helps to cover this problem. So the single page application. So what happens is, the first time when the page is loaded, then that time everything gets loaded, and then there is never a need to reload the page again. Yes, that is, logic is executed in the browser instead of making a trip to the server. So that is the biggest advantage of single page application. So all the logic is being executed in the web browser itself rather than on the server. And because this happens because of JavaScript, CSS and HTML5. Server is just used for storing the data. So that is the dependency of the server reduces drastically. So that is the difference between single page and multiple page application. Now to understand it better with the help of a diagram. So in the single page application diagram, what happens is, if you see, the client makes the initial request to the server, and once the initial request has been made, the server gives the HTML to the client, exactly the way it is doing in the multiple page application. But then on the page reload, what happens is, client makes an AJAX call to the server and only JSON is being provided. Yes, the entire HTML is not being provided. So HTML is loaded only once throughout the lifespan of the application. The server acts as a database just for storing the data. So that is the difference. Samples of single page application. Yes, all your favorite applications, Gmail, Google Maps, Facebook, GitHub, all of these are using single page application. So you are using single page application in your real time scenario without even realizing. Let's see with the help of an example. And the example is of Crunchbase. So the Crunchbase is an example of single page application. Let's see. If I am going and navigating to different tabs, see how quickly I am able to navigate. That is an example of single page application. See the amount of time it takes to load all the information. Now what I will do is, I will right click, go to inspect, select network, go offline, and then I will be clicking on the link. So you see, because I already selected companies before, I'm still able to see the data. Let's try something else. So now I went to the acquisitions. If you see, the result is 0, but I'm still able to see the UI. If you remember, in New York Times, when I click on the link, it showed no internet. An ugly UI was being displayed to the user. But here, I'm not even able to see the data, but the HTML is still there. So that is the difference. We are just relying on the data for the server. Otherwise, I'm able to see all the information. And that is the difference which makes single page application so much useful. We are clear with the examples of single page application. Let's understand the advantage of single page application. So single page application is definitely much faster, like we have seen with the example of Crunchbase site. As most resources like HTML, CSS, JavaScript are only loaded once through the lifespan of the application and then never reloaded again. It is easier to debug the single page application, and it is easier to make mobile applications with the help of single page application. So definitely there are a lot of advantages. And like I said, there is less load on the server because the client is dependent on the server just for the data. Now that we are clear with the difference between single page application and multiple page application, let's understand in terms of classic and lightning. So basically, if you talk about the Visual Force based apps, it creates a set of pages. So what happens is, again, when the page is loaded, then the initial HTML is rendered. Now when the user clicks on a tab, link, reload the page, etc., then the client requests the server and the result is another HTML. So basically new HTML is rendered back from the server every time the post request is made. But in Lightning what happens is there is only one page, and that is called our single page application. The HTML is loaded at the time of initial load, and now to fetch specific data from Salesforce, the client makes AJAX call to the server only to fetch the JSON. There is no loading of HTML again and again. So let's see with the help of an example. And by this example, you will be crystal clear about the and single page application. So now you can see a classic UI. Now let's see that what happens when I go offline in this mode. So again I will go to inspect. I will go to network, select offline mode, and then I will click on account tab. And see again, because it is a single page application, on the click by the user, the client requested the page from the server, and because it was not able to connect to the server, because of which it showed no internet. Again, an inefficient UI which is not that much helpful to the user. Now I would be switching to the Lightning experience, and let's see what happens there. So I switch to the Lightning experience. And once I switch to Lightning experience, what I can see is I will go to inspect. Again I will go to the network and go to offline mode, and then let's see candidates. Once I select it, I see a pop-up message saying check your internet connection and try again. So basically what is happening, it is providing a useful information to the user, and he can understand that okay, my network connection might not be working, so definitely it is much more helpful. So that is the main difference between classic and Lightning, that classic is multiple page application and Lightning is single page application. But now you even know the exact meaning of these terms. So I have already showed you that in the Salesforce Classic, this is the UI with no internet comes when you go to the offline mode. But if you go to the Lightning, you get a proper message saying you check your internet connection and try again. So definitely it is much more useful to the end user. So in the last video, Lightning Magic Begins, I asked you to see some questions. So in the last video, Lightning Magic Begins, I asked you couple of questions. Let's see the answers of them. So first one is, will Lightning component be replacing Visual Force? So the answer is no. Your old friend Visual Force is not going anywhere. So you don't have to worry. But Salesforce has announced that all the latest features will be added in Lightning. So it will be a good move to shift to the Lightning. Another one was, Visualforce already has components. How are Lightning components different, and why would I want to use them? So basically Visualforce components are page centric, and most of the work is done in the server, which we have already seen that we are heavily dependent on the server when we are talking about multiple page application. That is Visualforce, we are using the page centric, that is multiple page application. In the Lightning components, they are client side centric, which makes them more dynamic and more friendly. Like we have just seen that the dependency on the server is being reduced tremendously, giving beautiful UI, and also there is less load to the server because there is not multiple round trips. So now the time to answer a question. Now time to answer some questions. So comment below what you understand by single page application in your own words. So I have given you example of particular applications which are single page application and multiple page application. So go ahead, go to several sites, see whether they are multiple page application, single page application, and share in your own words what you understand by them, and ask for any question. So the takeaway from the video is difference between MVC and MVCC architecture. I would be discussing this question in my upcoming series. And check Salesforce Amplified Blog. It is having a lot of articles related to Lightning and Salesforce itself. I will be providing the link below in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment, subscribe, like, and click the bell icon, and definitely keep watching.